Okay, let's unpack this. What if, what if literally everything we've been taught about money, like paying off our credit cards, saving in a 401k, avoiding debt like the plague, what if all of that is exactly what's keeping us broke?
Right. It is a profoundly uncomfortable question to ask.
Yeah.
Because we're conditioned to view financial security through a very specific, culturally approved lens.
Absolutely, like the safe path.
Exactly. But the excerpts we're exploring today from Robert T. Kiyosaki's Managing Your Money, Personal Finance Simplified, they basically argue that this approved lens is actually a trap.
It's intense. Like the journey outlined in these sources is just a complete deconstruction of conventional financial wisdom.
Oh, totally.
So our mission in this deep dive is to map out this controversial framework. We're going to look at the brutal reality of bad debt, map out a survival level tactical plan to escape it, and then confront a massive psychological pivot.
Right. And that pivot is the core argument of the text, which is that acquiring massive debt might actually be the mathematical secret to true wealth.
Which just sounds insane at first.
It does. It really does. But to even entertain that concept of leveraging debt for wealth, the source insists we have to start with a really ruthless self-diagnosis.
Like you have to know where you are.
Right. You cannot build a financial empire if you don't know the exact coordinates of your starting point. The text relies on this old anonymous piece of wisdom, what do you do when you find yourself in a hole?
You stop digging.
Stop digging.
Exactly. The author compares figuring out how deeply in debt you are to going to the dentist, which is such a good analogy.
It really hits home.
Yeah, because you have a cavity, right? It's getting worse. But the sheer dread of sitting in that chair and hearing the drill, it just keeps you from making the appointment.
Well, the avoidance is a protective mechanism.
Oh, for sure.
When people look at their financial statements, they aren't just looking at math. They are looking at a mirror reflecting their past choices.
That's heavy.
Very heavy. The text points out that for many, the anxiety of acknowledging that hole is so overwhelming that they just give up.
They just stop looking altogether.
Exactly. They just stop.
And the source actually provides this diagnostic tool, this cash flow quiz, to kind of break through that denial. And a few of these questions hit incredibly close to home.
They're brutal.
Yeah. One asks, have you ever hidden a bill from your spouse? Which, that's just the conversation completely away from spreadsheets and straight into the psychology of shame.
Right. And hiding a bill is a symptom of operating at what the author calls the red line of life.
The red line.
Yeah. It's this state of chronic low-grade panic where you're barely making it from one paycheck to the next.
Wow.
Your nervous system is constantly dysregulated by financial fear.
And another question asks, do you buy lottery tickets in the hope of getting out from under your debt?
Which is so common.
I want to pause on this because hoping for a magic bullet is just such a universal human impulse. Like when you're operating on that red line, the math of getting out of debt seems so insurmountable that a $2 scratch off genuinely feels like a more rational strategy than budgeting.
And the author validates that exhaustion, When the daily reality of managing money is terrifying, a fantasy of sudden rescue is a totally natural psychological escape hatch.
Right.
But the text is absolutely relentless in pulling the reader back to reality.
Because wishing doesn't fill the hole.
No, wishing does not fill the hole. To actually gain control, the source demands 3 non-negotiable ingredients. You need a written financial statement, personal discipline, and a concrete game plan.
Okay, but knowing those 3 things are required is very different from actually doing them. Like, is the anxiety of the hole why so many people just stop looking at their bank accounts?
Yeah, people at the red line simply give up. And this raises an important question, right? How do we fundamentally change behavior when the math is terrifying? When your strongest instinct is just to hide?
Right, how do you fix that?
You have to completely re-engineer the sequence of your cash flow.
Okay.
You have to decide who gets your money first. This is the bedrock of the entire philosophy, and it's entirely counterintuitive. You have to pay yourself first.
Okay, wait, so what does that actually mean?
The rule dictates that the moment a paycheck clears, the very first transaction is not the rent.
Okay.
It's not the car payment, and it's not the credit card minimum. You take a set percentage of that money and move it immediately into a separate investment savings account.
Oh, wow.
And you pretend that money no longer exists until you are ready to invest it.
The text uses that story about Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? In the movie Conan the Barbarian.
Yes, that's a great illustration.
Yeah, like to show why this habit is so crucial. A group of guys are watching the movie, and one of them says he'd love to have a body like Schwarzenegger's.
Right.
And another guy points out that Arnold used to be incredibly skinny, but he built this daily, relentless habit of working out.
And then the cynic in the group immediately shoots it down.
Exactly. He says, nah, I'll bet he was born that way. Let's get some beers.
Right.
And we use that exact same logic to justify our own financial complacency. Like, we assume the wealthy were just born with a silver spoon, or they have some innate talent we lack.
Which excuses us from doing the heavy lifting.
Exactly. And the rich dad figure in the text uses this to highlight the core difference in habits. Poor people pay everyone else first, and if there's anything left over, which, let's be real, there never is,
There never is.
they pay themselves last.
But the rich dad reverses that sequence entirely.
Yeah.
He pays himself before the government, before the mortgage company, and before the utility bills.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because I have to push back hard on this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Wait, isn't it highly irresponsible, maybe even illegal, to tell people who are already drowning in debt to ignore their taxes and their rent just to pad a savings account?
It sounds reckless.
Like, it sounds like putting on your own oxygen mask first on an airplane, but doing it while the flight attendant is screaming at you for money. The emotional toll of bill collectors calling while you have cash sitting in savings seems unmanageable.
It sounds completely crazy until you understand the underlying mechanism.
Okay.
The source is very careful to distinguish between skipping bills permanently and just reordering the sequence.
Oh, I see.
The rich dad character firmly believes in paying his bills. What he is doing by paying himself first is intentionally manufacturing a high-pressure situation to force his own financial evolution.
Wait, how does artificial pressure create financial evolution?
Think about the motivation. If you pay your rent, your taxes, and your credit cards first, and you have $0 left to put in your investment account, who screams at you?
Nobody.
Exactly. No one. There is no external consequence for failing to invest in your future. You just quietly stay broke.
Oh, wow. But if you take your investment money first, and suddenly you're short on the electric bill, the electric company's going to make your life very difficult.
They scream very loudly. And the text explains that the fear of those screaming creditors becomes the fuel. The pressure of coming up short forces the rich dad to hustle.
So he has to figure it out.
He has to take on extra work, start a side business, or find a creative way to generate the missing capital. If he had paid the creditors first, he would have felt comfortable.
And comfort leads to complacency.
Exactly. The author uses this brilliant analogy of the 98-pound weakling and the bully from those old comic book ads.
Oh, right, yeah.
The government and corporate bill collectors are the bullies kicking sand in your face. When you pay them first, you are caving to the bully. You weaken your own financial position to satisfy their demands.
So by taking your cut first, you're forcing yourself into the financial gym, basically.
That's it.
You're building what the text calls mental money muscles. You learn to generate income under pressure, and eventually the bully stops scaring you because you know you have the capacity to out-earn their demands.
Right. But building those muscles is just the preparation phase. Once you have the capacity to generate capital, you have to know where to direct it. You need a map of the economic landscape, which the source defines as the cash flow quadrant.
Right, the quadrant. This maps out the 4 different types of earners.
Yes.
So first we have the E quadrant, which is the employee. And the text argues that the primary driver for an employee is a deep-seated need for certainty.
Right. They crave security.
They trade their time for a guaranteed paycheck and written benefits. The illusion of safety is prioritized over the potential for wealth.
Then we move to the S quadrant, the self-employed or the small business owner. The psychology here shifts from a desire for security to a fierce independence.
The do-it-yourselfers.
Exactly. The source calls them the do-it-yourselfers. A successful doctor with a private practice or a freelance web developer lives in this quadrant. They believe no one can do the job better than they can.
But the trap of the S quadrant is that you don't actually own a business. You essentially own a job. Your income is inextricably tied to your physical labor. If the doctor stops seeing patients, the income drops to 0 instantly.
Which brings us to the B quadrant. Transitioning from the S to the B quadrant, the business owner, is one of the most difficult psychological leaps.
Why is that?
Because the B quadrant is defined by delegation and systems. A business owner doesn't want to be the smartest person in the room. They want to hire the smartest people from the E and S quadrants to run their systems for them.
Right. And the distinction the text makes is brilliant. If an S goes on vacation for a year, their business evaporates.
Right.
If a bee goes on vacation for a year, they come back to find the business has grown and become more profitable.
Because the bee built a machine.
Yeah.
To use mechanical analogy. Well, actually, you had a good way of putting this earlier.
Oh, yeah. So the S is like the gears inside the machine, right?
Yeah.
But the bee is the person who owns the factory floor.
That's perfect. Yes. The bee owns the factory floor. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, regardless of where you start, the ultimate goal must be the final destination, the I quadrant,
Investor.
the playground of the rich. This is the only quadrant where true wealth is generated. In the I quadrant, your money becomes your workforce.
Money works for them.
Exactly. You deploy capital to acquire assets that generate more capital entirely independent of your physical labor.
But crossing into that quadrant is basically impossible if your cash flow is bleeding out through high-interest consumer debt.
All right, completely impossible.
Having the mindset of an investor means nothing if you don't have the tactical execution to free up your capital.
Which is why the text shifts from abstract theory to a very mechanical survival-level blueprint for starving bad debt. The immediate directive is to stop the acquisition of doodads.
Doodads. I love that word.
It's a great term.
It's those lifestyle inflators, right? The expensive dinners, the upgraded car lease, the sharp clothes. It's the money we spend to look wealthy, which ironically keeps us broke.
Right.
Cutting these out requires immense willpower. It means choosing delayed gratification over momentary status.
And the goal of cutting those doodads is highly specific. You must find an absolute minimum margin of $150 to $200 a month.
All right.
The author is incredibly blunt about this math. If you cannot comb through your financial statement and manufacture an extra $200 of margin, your chances of ever reaching the I quadrant are zero.
Zero. Wow.
You have to turn down the thermostat, start buying generic meds, stop using out-of-network ATMs, whatever it takes.
So what does this all mean for the listener at the grocery store? Like when you're standing in the aisle, staring at a carton of premium ice cream, you have to look at it differently.
It's not just a $5 treat.
Exactly. It is a direct threat to that $200 monthly margin. Respecting the budget with absolute rigidity is how you reclaim control of the math.
This tactical phase is really about survival. It's a mechanical process of turning off the leaky faucets to regain control. And once you secure that monthly margin, you deploy it using a very concentrated strategy.
What's the strategy?
You physically hide all of your credit cards except for one or two in a safe or a safety deposit box. You continue paying the bare minimum on every single debt you owe except for one.
Right.
You take that entire $150 to $200 margin and apply it directly to the principal of that one targeted credit card.
Which is commonly known as the snowball method, even if the text doesn't explicitly name it that. And the mechanics are crucial here.
Yes.
Because so many people fail at debt repayment because they try to spread their extra cash across like 5 different cards.
Right, and then the balances barely move.
Exactly. They barely move, they get discouraged, and they just give up. But by concentrating your fire on one card, you get a psychological win when that balance hits zero.
And then the math accelerates.
Yeah.
Once that first card is eliminated, you take the minimum payment you were making on it, add it to your $200 margin, and hurl that entire sum at the next credit card.
Snowball grows.
As each debt falls, the financial snowball grows larger and moves faster.
And you roll that expanding payment through your unsecured debt, the credit cards and medical bills, and then eventually turn it toward your secured debt, like your car and your mortgage.
Right. And the source claims that executing this system with ruthless discipline can render most people completely debt-free within 5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years. I mean, getting to zero is a monumental achievement. You've spent half a decade starving your bad debt. You are finally breathing free air.
You are at zero.
But this is exactly where the source delivers its most controversial curveball, the ultimate twist.
It is a massive pivot.
The text states, and I'm quoting here, once you get financially educated and understand how debt works, then your next job will be to get into massive debt.
Yes.
When I read that, it felt like a betrayal of everything in the previous chapters.
Yeah.
Why would someone spend 7 years crawling out of a hole just to grab a shovel and start digging again?
The reaction of horror is intentional.
Good, because I was horrified.
But the author distinguishes between the nature of the debt. You spent 7 years eliminating bad debt. To build wealth in the I quadrant, your job is to acquire good debt.
Right. The text uses this fascinating analogy to explain this, comparing debt to drugs or firearms. Basically saying debt itself is morally neutral. It's merely a tool.
Exactly. A drug prescribed by a skilled physician can save your life. That same drug taken recreationally can cause a fatal overdose.
Right.
A firearm used for sport or home defense is a tool of protection, but in the hands of a criminal, it is an instrument of destruction. Debt operates on the exact same spectrum.
So if you're financially uneducated, you use debt to acquire liabilities. Like you finance a luxury car that depreciates the moment you drive it off the lot. That debt takes money out of your pocket every month.
That is bad debt.
Right. But if you are financially intelligent, you use debt to acquire cash flowing assets.
Good debt. Imagine using a bank loan to purchase a duplex. You rent out both units. The rent collected covers the monthly mortgage payment, pays for the maintenance, and leaves you with a profit. The debt is entirely serviced by the tenants, not by your labor, and it puts money into your pocket every month. That is good debt.
Okay, but this completely upends the mainstream narrative. Wait, why do all the famous financial gurus on television tell us to avoid all debt like the plague if good debt is the secret?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the source takes direct, unapologetic aim at those gurus.
Oh, it really does.
The author suggests that many of these highly visible financial experts actually understand the power of good debt. They likely leverage it in their own massive media companies.
So they're basically hypocrites.
Well, they don't teach it to the public because teaching real financial intelligence is complicated and risky. It's much easier to sell a message of safety.
Because selling safety is incredibly profitable.
It appeals directly to fear. The public is terrified of the red line of life. Telling them to save their pennies and pay off their house provides a cozy, easily digestible illusion of security. But the text warns that this conventional wisdom, go to school, get a secure job, save cash, and invest in mutual funds, is actually the most dangerous path a person can take in the modern economy.
The quote that anchors this warning is chilling. It says, "Savers are losers and the middle class is shrinking."
It's a harsh truth.
As inflation devalues the currency, sitting on a pile of saved cash means your purchasing power is actively bleeding out. The old rules of money are designed to keep people working indefinitely to enrich the system.
The wealthy understand that the rules have changed. They don't save money. They hedge against inflation by borrowing currency to acquire tangible cash-producing assets.
Right.
They use massive debt as a lever to move the world.
This has been just a heavy paradigm-shifting journey. I mean, we started by looking at the psychology of the whole, recognizing how shame and fear keep us paralyzed.
We did.
We explored the deeply uncomfortable but necessary habit of paying yourself first, using the pressure of external creditors to forge our own financial discipline.
And then we mapped the economic landscape through the cash flow quadrant.
Right.
Identifying the crucial transition from trading time for money as an employee or self-employed worker to building systems as a business owner and ultimately deploying capital as an investor.
And we broke down the snowball mechanics required to starve bad debt and reach zero.
Only to end by dismantling the myth of the debt-free utopia.
Exactly. Revealing how the financially literate use good debt to acquire assets that generate perpetual wealth.
Yeah.
The mechanics of this aren't mathematically complex, but they demand a level of emotional control and behavioral discipline that most people simply aren't willing to endure.
And the reluctance to endure that discipline is exactly what the current financial systems rely upon. Which brings us to a final, lingering thought to process from these sources.
Let's hear it.
If the old rules of the American dream, getting a degree, seeking job security, saving quietly, and trusting the stock market, if those are actually mathematically designed to slowly bleed out the middle class, then what exactly is the purpose of the financial advice we receive from mainstream institutions? Are the systems, the schools, and the highly paid gurus genuinely trying to teach us financial literacy?
Or are they simply training us for financial compliance?
Exact.
Financial literacy versus financial compliance. That is the fundamental choice. Look at your own financial statement, locate yourself on the cash flow quadrant, and decide which game you are actually playing.